Hey y'all, I'm Anna. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another What's for Dinner. I have 3 really good recipes for you this week, so let's get started with the first one. The first recipe is taco stuffed peppers, and I also made some Mexican rice. So we're gonna start off by cutting the bell peppers in half and then taking the seeds out. Now the recipe says to use 4 of these, but it's just gonna be my husband and I eating these. I don't think my kids are gonna like it. So I'm just gonna do 3 for now. My peppers are ready to go. So we're gonna pop these in the microwave for about 7 minutes or so. I'm gonna check on them probably at the 5-minute mark just to make sure they're not too soft. And in this casserole dish, this is a 2-quart dish, I put about 1/4 cup of water in there. And now I'm gonna pop these in the oven. I'm gonna cover them up with a paper towel in a second and cook them, like I said, for about 7 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next step. In a large skillet, I'm going to cook up my ground beef. I have about 1.5 pounds of ground beef and 1 onion. The ground beef is all the way cooked through and I just drained all of the fat. Now I'm gonna add in 3 tablespoons of taco seasoning. The recipe says to add in 3/4 of a cup of water, but I think I'm just gonna do about 1/2 cup. And I'll continue to let this cook for just a couple of minutes until the water has pretty much evaporated. The taco meat looks great. I just turned it off, and now I'm gonna add in 1 cup of sour cream and 1/2 cup of salsa. Now I'm gonna add in about 1 cup of shredded cheese. The recipe says to use cheddar, but I'm using Colby Jack. I have Katie Jane behind me, so you'll probably hear her talking. Okay, so I've got the same dish. This is a 2-quart dish. Now if I was doing 4 peppers, I would use a 9x13 probably. But these fit just perfectly. I took all of the water out. I wiped these off so that they're not wet. Now I'm just going to take my taco meat and stuff each one. I do have a good bit of meat left over, so I'm just gonna pop that in the fridge and we can just eat on it later this week. I'm gonna take the remainder of my cheese, this is about 1 cup, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it all over the top. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the oven at 350 for 20 to 30 minutes, and while that bakes, we're gonna work on some Mexican rice. Several months ago, I shared this recipe with you in one of my videos for this rice, but I'm gonna share it with you again. Okay, so I've got a large saucepan and I'm gonna put this on about medium heat or medium high. I'm gonna heat up 1 or 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. This is 1 cup of long grain rice. I always like to rinse my rice like in a sieve like this. It really does make a difference. I feel like when I do this, the rice isn't as sticky and I just like it better, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So I'm gonna let this heat up and then I'm gonna add the rice to the oil. And I'm just gonna stir this constantly for about 2 or 3 minutes. The rice has only been cooking for about a minute, but I wanna go ahead and add in my spices now. This is a teaspoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And I'll continue to cook it just like this for another minute or so. Okay, it's been about 2 more minutes. Now I'm gonna add in 1 can of tomato sauce. This is 4 ounces. And 1.5 cups of chicken stock. Now I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt, maybe like quarter of a teaspoon or so. Now I'm gonna let it come up to a boil, then I'll cover it and reduce it to medium-low and let it cook for about 25 minutes. We really loved those. The sour cream and the salsa mixed in with the taco meat made it incredible, so let me know if you try that recipe. This next recipe is turkey bacon ranch sliders, and they are so good. I need to melt 1 stick of butter on the stove, so I've got a small saucepan. To the butter, I'll add half a teaspoon of onion powder and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. Now I'll put this on the stove and let it fully melt. I just preheated the oven to 350 and my butter is nice and melted, so I'm gonna take about 1/3 of this butter and brush it on the bottom of the rolls. Next, I'll add a layer of cheese on the bottom. The recipe says to use Colby Jack, but I love white American cheese. Now the recipe that I'm using, I've done a video on it several months ago, and I'm doing it the same way as I did last time. The recipe calls for chicken, but last time I accidentally used turkey because I thought it was chicken, and I really, really liked it, so I'm gonna use turkey again today. Now I'm just gonna layer that on. This is about 3/4 of a pound or so, actually a little bit more than that, but the recipe calls for a pound, but this will be good. Next, I'll add all of the bacon. This is about 8 slices of bacon that I cooked up. Half of this bacon came from one package and then the other half came from another package, so they look a little bit different, that's why. Next, I'll take my ranch dressing and just squirt some all over the top. You can use as much or as little as you like. And now I'll cover this with some more cheese. Another 1/3 of the butter. Now I'll cover it with the top, cover it with the rest of the butter. Next, I'll add about 2 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan. And the recipe does not call for poppy seeds, but I always put some on top. I feel like it just makes it look pretty and I like the crunch. Now they're ready for the oven. I'm gonna loosely cover these with some aluminum foil and bake them for about 20 minutes at 350. Then I'll take the foil off and let them continue to bake for about 10 more minutes. And when they're done, I'll show you what they look like. Those were so good. Even my 2 kids enjoyed them. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. They tore those up, so they are definitely kid-friendly. Let me know if you ever make those. This last recipe is loaded potato soup, and it's something I make very, very often. Normally when I make it, I don't use bacon, and I use a beef smoked sausage instead, but I didn't have any on hand, so we used bacon and it was still amazing, so let's get started. forgot to show this bacon earlier. I've got 10 slices of bacon. I'm gonna chop it up before I fry it. It's just easier to cook up that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all of this up. The first thing we'll do is fry up the bacon. I have a large Dutch oven here and it's preheating to about medium heat. And once that comes up to temperature, I'll add in the bacon. The pot is nice and hot, so now I'll add in the bacon. I'll just cook this until it's nice and crispy. My bacon is nice and crispy. I just put it in a bowl like this, lined with some paper towels just to drain the excess grease. And I did get rid of all of the grease from in here. It doesn't really look like it, but that's like maybe a teaspoon left in there. I always discard the rest. Here's what it looks like. It just gets really dark, and I feel like if I left that in there, or if I were to leave it in there, it would just be overpowering, so I just leave just a little bit in there. I've got this still on about medium heat. Now I'm gonna add in half a stick of butter. Now I'm adding in a diced onion. And I'll let this cook here for a few minutes until the onions are nice and soft. While the onions cook, I always take my wooden spoon and just kind of scrape the bottom and get all those little bits up so they don't burn and so that it flavors the soup. I'll also add a little bit of salt and pepper to the onions. The onions are nice and soft, so next I'll add in a 1/4 cup of flour. The flour has been cooking here for about a minute and I stirred it constantly so it didn't burn. Now I'm gonna add in all of my potatoes, 3 cups of chicken stock, and 3 cups of whole milk. Now I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of salt. I'll bring this up to a boil and then let it simmer on medium-low for about 25 minutes, and then we will add in a few more things. You have to try that soup. You probably have all of the ingredients on hand. It's just so good, and I promise you will love it. Okay, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's What's for Dinner. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye.